when I'm writing lyrics, especially, I'm looking for something that makes me nervous to share it.
But what's on my mind is you. The only thing that's on my mind is you.
Welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. Today I have producer, singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist Garreth Spinn with me today. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for reaching out because we got talking through actually a friend of ours through Jeremiah Higgins. I had him a few episodes back, and we talked about Stop Stand, which you've helped produce as well, right?
It's true. Yeah. I saw that you had him on, and I love the conversation, and obviously I love Jeremiah, so it was like a real joy to watch. So I figured I'd reach out and give you a little podcast continuity, and so we could talk a little bit about that song if you wanted to, or anything else. But like I said, really appreciative to have to be on for sure.
Yeah, no, I love nerding out about music. So anyone that wants to be here and nerd out with me, it's totally cool.
Yeah, no, my friends will tell you that I will be first in line.
Yeah, perfect. That's great. Awesome. Like we had a little conversation beforehand about like what got you into songwriting and into music. For people that don't know who you are, introduce yourself. What got you into songwriting, producing, and I love the story with the Harry Potter books as well.
Yeah. So my name is Garreth Spinn. I function under the artist name g.spinn. Just for we'll talk a little bit about that because I talked about that too. But I started writing songs at a very young age, like around 8, 9, 10. My sister got an acoustic guitar. When I was 8, she was 13, and so I would, kind of sneak behind her back and play her guitar when she was gone, without permission. And I really just was mystified by it. Even from day one, I remember one of the very first things I did when I picked up a guitar was make something of my own because I didn't know how to do anything else. It's like fretting, like pushing down the string on the fret. That was unknown to me. I didn't know that was a thing to do. So I'm just like trying to make something sound nice. So it's funny that the very first thing I did was try and write something. And I've been trying to figure out songwriting since then. And it's an ongoing process of trial and error. And it's been a super long road, but it's been great. The story that you referenced, I have this acoustic guitar here. And so this is the one that I got from, my sister got when I was 8. And so the way I acquired it was greatest trade of my life for sure. And I've had a couple. I traded all my Harry Potter books for that guitar. And so that was our sibling trade that worked out great for me. So, I mean, to be fair, she loves Harry Potter. She has Harry Potter tattoos. So, or maybe just one tattoo, but so it's not like she fell out of love with Harry Potter. We all still love Harry Potter, but I definitely love that guitar for sure. So yeah, I went to, I grew up in a suburb outside of Chicago, Naperville, and there weren't a lot of people who were interested in music the way that I was interested in music. One of my best friends, we started a band when we were in middle school, so I was in bands by then, and I had a little punk band in high school. We never played a show, but it was a growing and learning experience. And then I discovered Bob Dylan around the age of 17, and that really rocked my world. I'll never forget. I was in Nashville because I went to school outside of Nashville, and I was visiting Nashville, Music City, and I think at this time I happened upon Bob Dylan. It was the Subterranean Homesick Blues music video. A lot of people know that one because it's the one with the cards. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's like he has like flashcards of the lyrics, and look it up. It's a good one. And so that just that one just really like rocked my world. And I was like all in on like the dude and a guitar thing for a long time. Yeah. And then I got to Nashville, and it was like a serious awakening to how much I needed to improve. Because I kind of liken it to being like you're this star athlete, a star member of like the basketball team or whatever in high school, and then you get a scholarship to go to college, and everybody on the team was that guy.
Mhm.
And so it was very much like that. You know, immediately, you know, the first time I sat down with anybody in Tennessee and started trading songs, it was immediately clear that I had a lot of work to do. So that was, I mean, I was in Nashville, or the Nashville area. I went to Middle Tennessee State University, studied music business. You told me you studied pop performance. Is that what it was?
Performance, yeah. I studied the other side.
So yeah, I studied music. I studied studied music business, and you know, I was there in that area from 2008 to 2017. So it was a long time of being there before Nashville blew up, during and after Nashville blew up. So you know, I met just the most amazing musicians, songwriters, performers, and it was awesome because I had to step up because I wanted to be, you know, accepted, and I wanted to be like a contemporary of these people because they were not only my friends but just like wildly talented. And just, you know, like in college there was a band called One Big Owl, and they were just the best, I thought, the best band in our college town. And they would fill the house, like, you know, wherever they played, it would be for the most part almost always full. And I saw them probably 10 or 15 times. I would see them over and over, and they only had like 9 songs. So it was like, but every show was like a little different. And they were just so good, in fact, that I stole all of them and formed my own band. I think I took the singer, I took the drummer, I took the keyboard player. I already had, at the time in college, I had like an acoustic guitar duo thing with my buddy Dave, where, you know, we'd play my songs and his songs, and we would just like accompany each other. And so that was kind of a thing that we did. And I definitely became, you know, less satisfied with that arrangement. Not Dave, but it's like I just wanted more. And so started a band called The Joy of Painting, which was fun and did well. And then we stopped playing, and then I kind of found myself in this kind of purgatory of being able to kind of do whatever I want musically, but not really having any of the skills that I wanted to, other than like the songwriting part. Like, okay, I can write songs, but I don't have any money, and I can't like pay people to that. You know, I did it a couple of times where I'm like, okay, ask my parents for some money, save up money, whatever it is, and pay like $400, $500, $600 for someone to either produce or mix or whatever it is. And it might be good, but it's not what I wanted. And so then it's just like, okay, I got to figure this out for myself. And so after The Joy of Painting broke up was like the long journey of figuring out production and mixing and all that, which has been super important because it allows me to make the music I want to make without breaking the bank, and being able to put it out, because like that, that's the hardest part, is overcoming all the financial obstacles and meeting your creative kind of tastes. You know, there's a great quote from, I think it's Ira Glass that said this, you know, it's hard being creative because you have such high tastes and you don't have the skill set to meet them, you know. And so it's like, from the time I was 8 to still to this very day, I'm like, you know, constantly trying to excite me and meet at the very least my taste threshold of what I think is good, because it's frustrating when you're trying to make something and you can't make it happen, you know. And so that's kind of been my journey, I guess. I've also done I played in some bands in Nashville as a side man. Most of the time I was front man, and then I kind of started the separate like hired gun sideman journey. I played in an awesome band called Myzica. I played for this dude Reggie, who goes under R. Lamar. That was an experience too. And then I started producing my friends' work and growing the production and mixing side of things. And so Jeremiah being one of them. I mean, I was definitely, you know, pleased with the outcome of that. It was just the next step in the evolution of like this skill set, you know. And I always wanted to do something with Jeremiah because, you know, I look up to him. He's like a brother to me, and he had worked on stuff with me and helped me when I was like 20, 21, kind of just, I just kind of wrote my first batch of songs, and I'm like, wait a second, this is good. I like this. Like, I actually like this, which is always the best compliment to get. And I would get it all the time in joy painting was, oh, you guys are actually good. That's always my favorite one. It's like, what do you mean? What's that supposed to mean? But I'll take it. I mean, I guess that's sincere, I guess, but you know, what were you expecting? I guess low expectations. Yeah. So you know, Jeremiah helped me a lot, and just kind of, and also was the first time Jeremiah was important to me because it was the first time I was accepted by musicians like significantly better than me. Like his friends, he was in a band called Fall Classic, and he had these, you know, dudes that he was kind of running around with, and super talented. It's like very much like looking around, like which was kind of gave me the first taste of wanting to always be the worst musician in the room is always the best thing to happen. Very almost, you're always going to be learning something. So yeah, Jeremiah, long story short, Jeremiah was integral in my music development, and I had to repay him in that way and help him out with Stop Stand, which I think is a beautiful song. Love that song.
Totally cool. Yeah, for sure. That's really, I mean, that's how I found him originally, was through that song. And like, you know, this is a really good song, so I'm like, I have to have him on here. And then we obviously got talking about you, so it's great that, you know, you get to be on here as well. So it just comes full circle somehow. It's really interesting how things like that work.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm glad that I have made a lot of friends along the way that I can still bounce things off of and learn from them still. And so being able to come full circle and kind of deliver something like that for Jeremiah was definitely special for me.
That was really cool. Like you mentioned in the beginning when so you were kind of outside of Nashville. Is that what you said? Like
there's a town, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That is where MTSU is, Middle Tennessee State University, and they have an awesome, definitely one of the top. I mean, at the time, I was convinced it was the best, and I don't know if it's the best, but it's pretty good. I mean, I had a great time. But they have a very good music business and audio engineering program. So basically, all of my friends were either music business or the audio production path in that program. Maybe with the exception of one person, everyone in my old band Joy Painting was in that program. And Mark, one of the guys, Mark, was in the audio program, so he engineered our records. And then me and Kyle, we were music business, and so we handled all the business stuff. So it was all in house. We were figuring it out. So that was definitely cool, and just such an amazing experience. Like, I can't believe I was so lucky to land in that place at that time and meet the people I met who just accepted me, which was really cool. You know, fostered creativity and encouraged me. The way Joy Painting started actually was the drummer, Chris. I played a show, or maybe we were at a New Year's Eve party, and Chris, the drummer, he came up to me. He's like, said that he really liked me and Dave's act, and he was like, "Do you need a drummer?" And I was like, "I guess." So I was like, "Great, I'm going to be your drummer." And so that was the beginning. So it's like, that's just validating, you know, to like, I didn't have to ask. Because, you know, whenever you ask, there's always like some sort of like insecurity, being like, oh, I have to ask because they don't want to ask me. But he put his foot forward first and made it happen. So, you know, it's just an awesome community at MTSU in Murfreesboro that definitely spread into Nashville. And it was like, just, you couldn't ask for a better situation.
We say it's important or necessary, or to have that to go and study music business or engineering, or like I did, popular music performance. Like, would you say it's necessary? Would you say it's good to be around it, or what would your advice be?
So there's definitely layers to that answer. Like, for me, ultimately, yes, great thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think what's most important is surrounding yourself with like-minded people, creatively at least.
Yes.
And if you've got to go to school for that, to find that, like if you're in the middle of nowhere, like you probably should get out and go find people who who think like you or think at a higher level than you, if possible, and you're going to find that if you go to school for music of any kind, music business, audio production, performance, whatever it is, you're going to find people that are more talented than you. It's almost guaranteed. And so that's the key. And, for me, I probably could have maybe just moved to Chicago, or maybe just moved to Nashville and not gone to school. But I needed that kind of guided path of education. And, because I really did like going to class and learn the stuff I learned. Some of it was total BS. It was like history of punk. Yeah. Like I paid college credit courses for that, like that actually happened. So it's like, I loved it, and I learned about a ton of amazing music that is still just like vitally important to me. So like there's something valuable there that I maybe wouldn't have found, or maybe would have found way later. So it's hard because it's like, yeah, it does kind of seem like a lot of money to spend just to make friends, but it certainly put me on certainly put me on the path that I'm on now that I wouldn't change, Yeah. You're from a small town?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like in the middle of nowhere. So that's the exact same reason why I went to Birmingham to study music. Was not for the degree at the end of the day, like, because at the end of the day, either people like your music or they don't. They don't care about the degree or whatnot. Like, I did not do it for the degree. I went there for the people, for the connection, because it's kind of true. It's not what you know, it's who you know. So the connections I made there just kind of, it really helps you get out there and kind of if you're looking for someone to produce, or if you're looking for someone to be in your band, or you already have the people out there that can help you, and you don't have to like start from zero. So that definitely, I mean, that changed everything for me, from being in a small town where nobody really, you kind of go to concerts every once in a while, but that's it. Like, yeah. And I knew I wanted to take it more seriously, so I knew I had to get out of that mindset also that people had around songwriting in the music industry, and I had to move away from that and make new connections and just be around people that have that same mindset, have those same inspirations, and didn't judge me for studying music, right? Yeah. Like, for sure. And it's like you said, it's better to be in a room where you're not the most talented person in there, because you're going to be the one that's going to be learning the most. And that was definitely the case with me. Like, I was not the most talented person, but I got to learn a ton there, which was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I definitely think that, as easy as it is to kind of work on your own, and because there's no dissenting opinions, I think that collaborating and meeting people and making those connections, and I just mean, the business side of thing is very different than the creative side of things. It's very different, but creatively speaking, there's almost, it kind of makes me understand why, in like hip hop and pop, there's like 7 to 10 songwriters on any given song, right? Yeah. It does make sense in that maybe it's just a bunch of friends passing stuff around, and getting a different perspective, and because no one's going to, everyone who has like a musical personality, it's like whatever they do to a song, only probably they could do. So I think it's important to involve people when possible. I had to realize that some time ago that I couldn't do it alone. I really tried to do it alone after Joy Painting, and it's just like it's not how I can achieve what I want to achieve. It's like I have to include other people and rope them in, and then like in the case of The Only Thing, rope some folks in, and it elevated it to like to a way that I never imagined before. But yeah, so I definitely, the community aspect is absolutely necessary, I think, unless you're a complete genius, like, you need to learn from other people. That's the best way to grow, for sure.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I could talk forever about that, but I like 100% agree with that. I mean, that's something I definitely learned when I was in England for sure. Like that makes a huge difference. Um, but you kind of said before, like in our little chat before, is that you said there was a huge difference to, you know, how you wrote songs or what you thought a good song was, like the process of a song. Like when you were like starting writing songs and now. So what would you say makes a good song?
Oh, do you ask everyone this question?
No. I'm specifically asking you this one.
Um, what makes a good song? It's so different, and I think I try and show that in the variety of things that I produce and make.
Yeah.
That a good song, I think, has to just strike something, evoke some sort of reaction. I think, think about the times you've heard a song that just stirs nothing in you. You don't want to listen to that song again. You know what I mean? And so I think, the elements of a good song is just deep honesty and vulnerability. And I think everything else probably can vary greatly. Me personally, I gotta have a tight groove. I love anything that's like, it doesn't have to be funk, but it's got to be funky. So you can have that kind of groove.
Tell that in your music for sure. Like listening to
yeah,
I'm like, ooh, yes. I'm feeling
yeah. For me, it's rhythm is for the final product, because like, writing a song with an acoustic guitar and then the final product that you put out, it's gonna feel really different, but I think that rhythm is a huge element of what draws me to music. That was the first thing, actually, really the first thing I was most interested in was drums. I remember even before 8 years old, my teachers would yell at me for drumming with my pencils on my desk. So like, I was always interested in rhythm from a very, very early age.
Yeah.
And even before I even like, understood that what music is, or that it, but so yeah, the elements of a good song are, I just think it's just honesty, and that's about it. That's like when I'm writing a song, I'm trying to, especially when it comes to lyrics, which I think is like a really personal element of songwriting. And I try not to be super critical of other people's lyrics, because you don't know where they're coming from, and it might be really personal. So it's like, something that might sound cheesy or lame might to the writer be something really personal to them, that might, so when I'm writing lyrics, especially, I'm looking for something that makes me nervous to share it. Where, like, if you like, just use myself as an example, like a song like Born Afraid was when I wrote it, I was like, oh, and I wrote it a while back before I released it. It was in the Joy of Painting era that I wrote that song. And I was like, I kind of put that song to the side for a long time, because like, that one is a little bit, I'm not ready to put that one out yet. That's just too vulnerable. You know what I mean? And then when I was eventually trying to gear up to put out my own music again, I wanted to start with that one, because it's like, all right, like if I can get that one out the gate and feel good about that, and I can see people are responding to it in a way that makes me less scared, then I'm going to feel a little less fearful of people's judgments. And so I think that if you're writing and you're not like a little, I don't want to say embarrassed, but it's just like, that kind of feeling where you're just, something that's just maybe something like you wouldn't share at your diary. It's like, you're not posting that on Instagram or whatever. It's like, that's super personal. But I think that, you can deliver that stuff to the world in a song. And that type of privacy and intimacy, I think, even in like, there's a great song that I found recently by Kylie Minogue. And it's called I Was Gonna Cancel. I think that's what it's called. And it's not, I found it because it was on RuPaul's Drag Race. They used it as a lip sync song on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Okay.
So Oh man, I was obsessed with this song when I heard it, and it's a total like disco pop banger. It was written by Pharrell. Pharrell wrote it and
Oh
produced it.
well, that makes sense. Yeah, Pharrell is
Totally. And so it sounds like just like kind of like an innocuous kind of like dance song or whatever,
yeah.
but it's really beautiful. Like lyrics are beautiful. It's like anyone, especially our age, can connect with the feeling of wanting to bail on something, like bail on a party, bail on a hang, bail on whatever it is where you just like you want to cancel. I was gonna cancel, and then like the whole song's about just like taking a look in the mirror and being confident in who you are and just like going out and doing it. Oh, sorry, I sweared. So there, that's one. Okay, that's my one. We got PG-13. You can swear once, so we get one. Sorry about that. So I don't think it has to be a sad feeling song to evoke something that might be intimate or personal to you. So it can be a pop tune, or it can be a sad like folk number or whatever. I think that there's a range in which vulnerability can fit.
I mean, Sia, I think, has perfected that. Like, her songs are really like have that kind of sad mood, like that sad undertone, but has a really serious message, like but a positive message, right? Like she like blurs those two together, where you're like, where you would think like, oh, if you're putting out a positive, happy message, your song needs to be happy and positive as well. But she actually does the opposite. Like, she has these positive, uplifting lyrics with that like really mellow, almost kind of like sadder sounding. They like uses more of like a minor scale and stuff. So I'm like,
Sure.
that's interesting. So
yeah, I agree. Sia is a good example. Like I don't know a ton of her stuff, but when I think of like Chandelier, it's like that's kind of like like that's a total banger, like of the highest level,
Oh
and
yeah.
but you listen to the lyrics, it's like I think whoever the protagonist in this song is, they've got like a problem, and they don't really know it. They're partying throughout the song and they think it's dope. This is a way lamer example. And I think this was like way too like on the head as far as like what they were going for, because they're going for this exact thing. Do you know this Weezer song called Can't Stop Partying? You know that song?
I don't think so, no.
It's not really worth looking up, I'll be honest. But unless you really want to know what I'm getting at here, but it's like it's a minor key like party song, and it's like evokes the sadness of someone who can't stop partying. They're like addicted to partying and addicted to that lifestyle. And I think I heard Rivers, the singer and writer of that song, say that he was trying to go for that specific kind of thing, where it's just like, because there was a major key version, he was like, that's too happy, doesn't fit. He flipped it and did a minor key version, and he just wanted to evoke the sadness of like not being able to control yourself, I guess.
That's very interesting. Yeah, but I mean, I've never really realized that until more of like the Sia songs came on, and I'm like, this message is actually really positive. Like, like it somehow works because it has a strong beat behind it. Like, it just kind of pushes the song. You just kind of want to, I don't know. It's very interesting how she combines the two. I've never thought about a combination like that until I've like heard more of her stuff. So yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, but with Stop and Stand, that was a very interesting story, I think, like from Gareth's Gareth it's Jeremiah's perspective. Like, he had this idea and then he sent you the track. What was your story behind that? How does that, as a producer, how do you capture someone's sound? Like, how did you know where to take the song? Because he said like whatever, like what you did with it was way better than what he imagined it would be. So how do you find that direction where a song should go, especially if it's like not yours and you're helping someone produce?
Yeah, I would say, it certainly helps that's a really good song. So like that's the first step. And so he accomplished that, which was great. And my idea for the song was just kind of, I heard the drums kind of, and I feel like once again, rhythm is the driving factor for me, absolutely. And so it's like I was hearing that kind of bass and drum groove initially, and I could just hear it. I'm just listening to the vocal, like when he first sent me that song, it's like I thought it was beautiful as is, which essentially occurs in his acoustic version that he put out as well, like a week or so later. And it was essentially kind of like that, a little just him and a guitar. But I was really focusing on his vocal and his words, and his voice is very rhythmic, which led me to the rhythm of the drum and bass. And I don't really remember, but I'm fairly certain that I did all the drums and bass first. Just knocked all that out, and that was the kind of the idea. And when you strip it down to just drum and bass, it's really simple. And the song, and then for the rest of the production, because there's a kind of like that intro kind of thing with like the marimba and the kind of more atmospheric stuff. I was getting very into ambient music at the time. And the song kind of evoked a winter feel to me, even though we were working on it in summer. Like it kind of feel, because I think in the song he mentions something about, I can't remember, but it kind of evoked just more of like a wintry kind of feel. And so I was kind of going for that initially, and then I knew I was going to kind of cut out into the kind of main thing of the song. But it's tough. It's hard to, all of it kind of comes at once for the most part. Like I kind of envision, I can hear it in my head. And part of the hard work that I've been doing over the years is trying to figure out what's in my head and getting it out into the recording. So yeah, it all just kind of came. I do remember him saying in your interview that I just wanted the vocal, and that is true. I just wanted and whenever I work with anybody, that wasn't just him. It's just like, I don't want any kind of outward influence, anything at all. I just want the voice. The most important thing is the vocal. That's like a mixing technique and a production technique, and obviously a writing technique. It's like the thing that is most important is the voice and it being heard, and everything fitting around the voice. So it's like I heard years ago, there's this guy, Andrew Bird. I don't know if you've heard of him. And he said he made this album, and the first thing he tracked was the vocals. And I thought that was really interesting. And so I kind of always kept that in the back of my mind. And anytime I've ever worked with other people, they always want to do vocals last. Or which is the conventional way of doing it. And so I would never
more towards the end.
More towards the end. But I, once I started doing stuff on my own or producing my friends' music, where like I was kind of leading the charge with, as far as the recording session, I just wanted to work around the vocal, because that everything has to be out of its way. And so everything that I did with Jeremiah was informed on the vocal and working around it, and the what he's evoking. It's like I try and take the emotion that he's evoking in the vocal and find some series of instruments, sounds, tones, whatever it may be, to kind of better support that. So that's kind of the process of that song, and kind of my mindset when I'm doing anything.
Wow. So would you say you have the same process when you're doing your songs as well, or is it just like when you're helping out someone else, like producing their song?
Yeah, definitely. At least more recently. I mean, it's a little different with every song, but I would say that's mostly true. So easiest prime example, single I put out in December, that was a strange way for a song to come to existence. I was doing a lot of just kind of forcing myself to jam with myself and like making tracks in Ableton. I use Logic and Ableton depending on what I'm doing. And I was in Ableton just making myself, this was in early 2020, just making myself make stuff every day. I think I tasked myself with, I labeled all of them COVID blank. It's COVID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And I was like, I gotta at least get to COVID-19 as far as the amount of just like ideas that I'm just gonna like spit out, free form, just going for it. And so one of the songs, one of the COVIDs was the song I Wish I Was Broke Again. And so kind of had the instrumentation, but it was rough. I really just had the general kind of skeleton. And so the next thing I did is I was kind of flipping through my journal that I was kind of, at that time, I was very focused. I was just like I was doing nothing because we were in quarantine. So it's like, I'm just going to write in a journal every day. I'm going to make something every day. I don't care what it is. I'm going to make it. And so I, had this journal with kind of a similar concept of just writing whatever. And then my session files of like, jams that I'm just trying to piece together, and so I wish I was broke again. I just found this page and just boom, like just kind of improvised, I think, the whole thing. I don't really remember. The only part there's one part I was kind of stuck on that I need to work on, but it's just like, I just found the lyrics, they fit. I don't think I edited any of it. Like I just kind of went for it.
Wow.
And so, but then all the rest of the production outside of the drum and bass, I worked around the vocal to make sure that it never stepped on that. And so that's kind of how that one happened. And I would say the same thing is kind of true. The only thing is a very long story as far as that song is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it like in 2013, I think. And wrote it in 2013, and it's been a very long road of that song's evolution, but the melody was always the primary thing. Like the version that you hear is very much everything that happened in that song is happening around the vocal. And like from the very earliest version of that song, because there's been a number of different versions of that song, the bass line specifically, like, in The Only Thing, it's a pretty busy bass, but like I was always tracking with that final vocal to make sure that whatever I was doing was either complementing or staying out of the way of the vocal. So yeah, I would say everything that's my mindset, especially with mixing. Just a mixing tip that I didn't know until much later. First thing I always do now is get the drums and the vocal like set. That's like and then everything is leveled up to fit around that. And because when you really think about it, all people care about is the beat and the words.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that that's super clear.
Yeah.
And that's honestly like it's not like that strange. It's not surprising at all to me. When I really think about it, it's like I told you, the first thing I think of is the rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
and people want to sing along, like they do. Like everyone loves to sing along to their favorite song. It's a great feeling, especially when maybe you can understand. It's the first time you sing along to a song for the first time. All the words. I don't know. There's like a very, very, very small sense of accomplishment. It's like, oh, I learned a new song. Because I listen to a lot of music, so it's like I don't spend a lot of time with stuff anymore. And so when if I'm listening to something enough where I know all the words to the song, that is an astronomical feat at this point in my listening and absorption career.
Yeah. So I have a really bad memory, so like I just forget. So it's very interesting what music does, though. Like sometimes I love when they play like older songs on the radio, and then instantly you remember all of the lyrics. Like it's been years in between. Like I hadn't I don't remember what song it was anymore, but it's been a song that was like really popular like 5-6 years ago, and then all of a sudden it's been played on the radio again, and you're just not even thinking about it, and you're like singing along, and you just remember all the words. I'm like, where did that come from? Like that is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had that experience, especially with like, stuff from high school, like my pop punk days. Like you put on like a Blink-182 song, it's like I'm gonna know all the words, and I don't listen to Blink-182 anymore. It's like I've moved on for sure, but I will know those words no matter what for the rest of my life. And it's funny too that with something in my eye, when it comes to like your brain like that, it's like you hear all the time about like dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients that like their brain just is triggered in a good way when they hear a certain song. Music is just a very, very powerful thing in that way. It's like I'm not a super spirituality and me have an ebbing and flowing kind of relationship, but when it comes to music, there is an undeniable kind of like weird spiritual energy about music. It's like whether it's like you hear a song for the first time, it just like knocks you out. It's like it's just a song. It's like but it still just like floors you, when you hear that song, or when you write a good song. Like there's a difference. Like, oh, I wrote a song and like today today I wrote a song, and then maybe tomorrow I might write a good song. It's like the days that you write a good song, it's like, you know, for me, it's always like, it's kind of just received. I don't know. It's just like, you're just open to a moment and it just happens. It hasn't happened much, but it happens. And so, yeah, what was I saying? I got off track. Lost my train of thought.
We were talking about Alzheimer's, how powerful music is, how
Oh.
that, you know. Flow.
Yeah. So, but I agree. Music is certainly powerful. Definitely.
Yeah. You got an album out that is more of an ambient sounding. What is it, like 7-8 tracks on there?
There's 10, which I think I maybe overdid that one. Yeah, there's.
I thought there were like 8 on their max, but like, wow, yeah, 10. But what inspired that album? Because that's so different from all the other stuff you've been putting out there. Like, it's very funky, and like the rhythm is, like you said, like the rhythm is like the most important thing. So all of your definitely has that in your music. And then, but I really enjoyed the ambient one.
Really?
Really did. Yeah. I love. So here's the thing. Like,
strange to me.
I mean, as musicians, like, there's like listening to a song, and then you're like listening to a song.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
When I hear music, I'm automatically in my head is already analyzing what's the bass doing, what's the rhythm, what are the lyrics, how's the melody going, like how's it, all that. So in my head, I can't turn that switch off once there's a certain. So I can't like read and listen to music, or do my homework and listen to music. Like, my sister does that all the time. She'll like be in her bed, do her homework, and listen to music. I can't do that because my brain is focusing on the music. So for me, it's really hard to find music or background music I can listen to and has that perfect balance between me being able to switch off my brain, but giving me that something so I'm kind of in the mood to do work or to keep that spirit up. So I kind of like that, at least ambient sounding stuff, because there are no lyrics I need to listen to, and for me, I don't know how it is with you, but for me, it's really hard to find that balance between being interesting, but not too complex. So you have to listen all the time, be like, okay, what's happening? And that's what that album did for me. Like, it's that really cool, this is definitely an album I can use to read or do my work in and stuff. And it's really hard for me to find that.
Yeah, I that one was also a strange journey for me. When everything shut down, I had to work from home.
Yeah.
And there was a long period of time where there was no work to be done because I have a very in-person kind of job. But eventually I started working from home, and I needed something to listen to while I was working.
Yeah.
But in the exact same way,
yeah,
I can't listen to like pop music. I started with jazz, and I've been listening to jazz for a long time, so it wasn't anything new. Started with jazz, to Miles Davis, nothing spectacular. I mean, obviously it's spectacular, but nothing crazy. I don't really have a huge jazz vocabulary. Jeremiah's great for that, but
oh yeah.
But I needed something, and I don't know where I got the idea to listen to ambient music, because if you would have asked me like 5 years ago anything about ambient music, I probably would have told you it's not music or something like that. Or I would just, I never gave it even a thought. I mean, it just never occurred to me. Of course I've heard of ambient music, but it was just like, that's not what I'm into. I'm into songs. Like, I'm into, yeah. And so I started listening a lot, and that was really my first taste. Like March or April of 2020 was my first real taste of ambient music.
Oh, okay. So it's been pretty recent.
And yeah. And I mentioned before that, I was doing the journaling, and then I was also doing the kind of like everyday beat making, everyday journaling, kind of back and forth. The initial idea I had was to, and this is so like, it feels egotistical, once you hear it, but I was making this ambient music, or trying to make this ambient music, so I would have something to write to in my journal, and then I would also have because I was writing to other people's ambient music, and I was like, well, what if I kind of did this kind of cyclical, kind of inspirational type thing where I make this ambient music and then you use that ambient music to set the tone for a writing session, and then using the words that I write with these other jams that I was making on the side. So it was all just kind of feeding into each other and just kind of like a little like loop of creativity.
Yeah.
And I was really like amazed and stunned at what I was able to just kind of feel in making that. I kind of, in my head, I always called it like slow-mo jazz, because all of it was like improvised essentially. Like I would set up some parameters and just kind of find interesting sounds. And then in Ableton is how I did the whole thing. I would make a couple of loops, and then I would have like a lead kind of voice, mostly piano, but sometimes it would be other things, where I was just kind of just going, I don't know, just seeing what I could find. It was like just kind of like a trying to find something. I don't know what I was trying to find, but I was trying to find something. And I found myself kind of unsurprisingly getting into like a trance while I was making it, where I was I've tried meditation and I've done it to some success in the past, but when I was making that stuff, I kind of felt my first true connection to meditation, because the thing that is hardest for me is to shut off my brain, like when I'm meditating or anytime. And you know, my brain's always thinking about all sorts of stuff, right? And
yeah.
I found myself in the making of that completely lost, and I would like kind of crank it too, like, and so I'd just be kind of lost in this like kind of wave of sound, and I was just trusting my fingers would find the right notes, and they almost always did. And you know, thankfully it was MIDI, so it's maybe just like, you know, tweak a note, you know, it's fine. Yep. But for the most part, I unedited, almost completely unedited, with a couple of exceptions. And I'm honestly just as surprised as you are, you know, because if you were to talk to any of my friends who I've made music with, certainly I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not like I'm not a super technically proficient musician. Like Jeremiah would be light years ahead of me. Whereas me, I'm always like, all my productions, I'm like cobbling stuff together. I'm like piecing things together that that like different takes and stuff, or, you know, I definitely kind of cheat, I guess, in Logic, you know, and I just want to attain what I'm wanting to attain. There are some stuff I don't tweak. Like sometimes you come across this little happy accidents of like, you know, you hit a funky note, feels right, keep it. But
repeat the mistake again.
Yeah, yes, that is jazz.
Exactly. Now we call it jazz, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, the ambient record was really just for me. And it was like something that I made because I wanted to, and it just felt like every day I was just like pumping out a new like ambient thing. And I just kind of kept going until I had what I thought was enough. I guess in retrospect, I probably would have shaved off a song or two off of it. It's a bit long, but I mean, I think that most people are, the idea of it was for people to use it the way that I was using it, which was working, reading, cleaning the house, where it's like, you're not really on a time crunch. So it's like, whatever. And yeah, so and then I just made myself put it out. And actually, part of a big reason that it really came together was because the album art I thought was really dope, and I have it here actually. It was actually like handmade. So right here it is, and this is my dad when he was like 7, and I found this picture. I wasn't really wanting to use my dad specifically, but there's this picture at my family's home of him. You know, it's black and white, and it's just always so just like innocent and picturesque. I mean, it's a little obviously weird now. And so I told my friend, I was like, can you just make something crazy with this picture? And he was like, done, I can do it. He was actually Enjoy Painting too. His name's Kyle McCormick, amazing artist, graphic designer. He's done, with the exception of the singles that I put out and putting out this year, he did like the Joy Painting album art over the years, and he always helped me with this kind of stuff. And it was just, it was just as wild as the album. And so it's just like, we got to do this. So
So
that
cool.
that final piece was really like, I was like, okay, this has to happen now.
Yeah.
And I did it to also sort of kind of really put out there that I'm not really interested in being in kind of sticking to one genre. Many years ago, I adopted the kind of idea that there are no bad genres.
Mhm.
And so constantly challenging myself to prove that to be true. And with that, it's like I also felt like I should spread my work out so that it covers like a large kind of cast a wide net, so that it just kind of that's just kind of representative of me, I think, of the kind of varieties of me and my taste. It's like I hate making the same thing over again. A lot of times songs or whatever will kind of stall up because like, it sounds like what I've done before. And so it's like, I'm always trying to do something that I haven't done before. And the ambient record was just that. And it just kind of snowballed, not out of control, but it snowballed into control. So yeah, that was the ambient record. I'm glad you liked it. Honestly, it is very surprising how many people like it. I honestly was, and honestly, with all my music that I put out, I just go in with the expectation that either nobody's going to listen to it or nobody's going to like it except for me, and that's fine,
Yeah.
And that was not true with the ambient album at all, which I thought was just very. I was quite tickled, to say the least. I did not even think that many people even listen to that kind of music, because nobody ever talks about that kind of music. It's a very kind of like personal kind of music. You'd be very surprised how many people listen to ambient. Like, a lot of people, but nobody. It's not like, ambient songs don't slap. You're not putting it on at a hang. There's none of that happening. And on that, I said I'm very rhythmically minded, and so it's like I wanted to break out of that a bit and just be like, no. Well, there's one song with percussion, but like no drums, and just
it's very fluid. Like there's no like time signature in it. There's no like.
No.
It doesn't feel like, okay, here's the one, here's the,
no,
shuffle or whatnot. There's like nothing. I mean, that's why it's an ambient album, and I'm so grateful that you put it out there. So thank you for, trying something completely different, putting it on there, because like you said, like nobody talks about it, but there's so many people that do listen to it. I mean, I'm constantly looking for songs or playlists where I'm like, okay, what can I listen to like shut off my brain and not like get to do like whatever work I need to get done, but without triggering, like makes me think and has to like analyze what's going on, right? So that's perfect.
Yeah. I had a thought, I lost it, but I mean, and as far as I know what I was gonna say, it plays into, I think the other thing that's great about ambient music is that it teaches you a lot about, like, you can take away a lot from ambient for production. I mean, just in in Stop Stand, it's like there's kind of like that ambient-ish intro, which that was happening at the same time as me making that album. Like those were happening at the same time, along with other things, So it's like, I watched this, the Masterclass app.
Yes.
It's like, so I bought that. That was one of my quarantine purchases. It was like, well, I'm not spending any money on like coffee every day, for example. So I'll get this. I will bite on this advertising, because I'm sure just like everyone was advertised that app endlessly. And there's a Timbaland masterclass. Timbaland, the producer, and he has like a little crew of almost like a band of producers. It's like 4 guys that all hang out in the studio, and they all just like make beats together. And one guy, his sole job is an ambient, but that's an element that if that's going to be in a track, he puts that in there. And he basically said he puts some sort of ambient layer under every track for the most part, because it just adds another layer of things. Even if it's not totally heard and upfront, it's still felt in the mood. And so that's just another tool that you can take from ambient and place it into pop or rock or indie stuff to just kind of alter your song or whatever. Just it like I said, it's not it's not necessarily heard in the mix, but it's just felt. And he would show that in like kind of A/B, and it definitely is an interesting technique that I picked up.
That's an interesting thought, because like you said, it's definitely felt, even though it's not like consciously you're not like thinking about it. It's like, oh, I love the ambient sound in the back, like, but it's still, you still pick up on it, and it's you experience it, you feel it. It's definitely there, even though you can't put your finger on it. Be like, oh, that's why.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot more than I anticipated when it came to making that record and exploring that genre. I definitely recommend anyone trying it. I mean, I think it's useful in a lot of different ways, more useful than pop music, honestly. Like pop music is useful in not every setting, you know, but I think ambient, it's like very utilitarian, which I found to be kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So maybe I should try it.
Yeah, I can send you some recommendations. I'll email you some stuff that I found that I really like. And it's just another kind of piece of knowledge that you can have in your back pocket, and making it is easier than you'd think. I mean, Ableton really helps. So if you're listening and you're interested, try using Ableton, because it's like you can make these loops. I'll make like these, for that album, I would make like these kind of like, you know, it might be like a 100-bar loop, and then a 77-bar loop of something else. And so they're just kind of not in sync, and they're very long, and it's just like these kind of turning wheels. And then I place myself in the middle of that and do like piano or what have you.
Huh, that's cool. For the last question, what advice would you give someone? Let's say, you know, your younger self is just starting out, is just getting into music. What advice would you give that little Garreth?
I would say, that's a good question. I would say, listen to a lot of music. Be yourself, and collaborate. Like those are, I think, the things that, and it's things I guess I've done, you know. But I would say that, like, if I'm giving some advice to somebody, it's, and the other thing too is, like, music for me is really hard. It's not easy, and I think that some people will get discouraged if they're not immediately good at something, and so I know I do. And so, you know, you really have to put in an extreme amount of time to get good at this, especially if you're talking songwriting, production, mixing. It just takes a long time to figure it out, unless, like I said before, you're just like a genius and everything just comes to you and you don't just understand. That's not me. So yeah, I know that's kind of the very fractured advice, I guess, but you know, the thing that I think everyone who's writing and producing should do is absorb as much as you can musically, and listen to all kinds of stuff, because you never know what you could pick up or learn from something that you would maybe otherwise never give a second thought to. So
exactly, like the ambient sound, who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope what this the purpose of the podcast is really so people can see that you're not born a songwriter, you become a songwriter, right? I think
yes,
a lot of, at least that's what I thought, is like, if you don't have the talent straight off the bat, and if it doesn't come easy, then you're not good, and then you should just quit, and that's it. And the more I'm in it, and the more musicians I talk to, the more I surround myself with those people and interview them and kind of talk with them, the story's always pretty much the same. Like, no one starts out with it just comes easy and it just comes, you know, sometimes it's more of the exception. A song will come to you, you'll write it down, and you know, that's it. But that's more the exception to the rule. Like, you just grow into being that producer, that songwriter, that guitarist, the bass player, the drummer, the lead singer, the performer, like whatever it is, you grow into it, and not like immediately, or you're not born that person, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
When it comes to songs coming easy, you're right. It does sometimes happen. And I think the way that happens is when you allow yourself to receive that as often as possible. So like if you don't write ever, if you're not working on something creative and you're not putting in like, if you're not doing it enough, it's never going to come.
Exactly.
And so you have to put in a lot of time where you're constantly in position to receive that like creative lightning bolt whenever it strikes. And I think that a sign that if something does come out quickly, that's typically the best sign, in a lot of ways. Like for The Only Thing, I wrote that song. I mean, I was drunk, but my memory of it is I wrote it in as little time as it takes to sing it. It like just hit me. And I just came home from the bar that night and I just picked up a guitar, boom, came out. And so like, if you can allow yourself to have those moments frequently, then you will very quickly like cobble together, a lot of good material. And then sometimes you got to work on stuff sometimes that happens too. Doesn't mean it's not a good song, because, but sometimes you just have to have the kind of future perspective to know that where it's going to go and what it needs to be. And so then it just might take some time to chip away at it. And then maybe there's some small idea that's like a small lightning bolt, like, oh, this is the thing that it needs that it was missing. So
yeah, totally. It's always different. I love what Ed Sheeran said. He's like, he writes, I don't know how many songs a day, right? And then he's like, it just needs to come out. Like he said, he wasn't born a great songwriter. He just wrote a lot of songs. So when all the crap comes out, like eventually the better stuff will come, right? You just need to write a bunch of songs. And then out of the 50 that you've written, like you said, write a song every day to get yourself in that position. And then out of that, 50 songs, 2 or 3 are good.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. I have a lot of, I just remember when I was like in middle school trying to write songs, it was so like dramatic, but I was like, my dad told me that he observed this too. I would write on like a legal pad, and I would like very dramatically, if it wasn't working, I would rip it off and throw it in the trash, like crumpled up and throw it in the trash, very dramatic. And I just remember just doing, that's the strongest memory I have of that time, is this motion, crumple, trash. There's a lot of that. And so if you're just starting, it's going to happen. And you just need to just keep trying and keep being able to have your vision and get it out,
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for spending so much time with me. I'm just looking at the clock, so I just get carried away. Like once we get started about talking about music, I could just talk and talk and talk, and so I sometimes just forget the time. So I apologize. Thank you so much for being on here and taking the time. This was an absolute treat.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Love chatting with you. I'm the same way. My wife will tell you, it's like once you get me started, I will not stop. So I appreciate you stopping me.
Yeah, no, I have a clock right in front of my face, so I kind of get time.
Very aware.
But you just get talking and but where can people find you? So if they want to listen to your music or find you on social media, where are the best places to find you, and where can they find you?
Totally. I make it pretty easy. It's my Instagram handle is @g.spinn. Everything on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, all g.spinn. So if you type in that, you should be able to find it. We'll have links below as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think by the time this comes out, latest single is The Only Thing. And super proud of that one. I hope that you give that one a shot. It's a fun one for sure.
Yeah, definitely check that out, because I got a sneak peek and I already love it. So I can't wait for it to come out and to everyone can listen to it. It's fun. It's a fun song for sure. So
yes, it's a very songy song. It's very appropriate for me to be promoting this very songy song on a songwriter's podcast, because it's about as songy as it gets, I would say.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I'll link everything up below. So if anyone wants to find links and stuff, they're all linked up. And
Thank you so much. It was great talking.
Thank you for listening to the Musician's Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Alise Koa. I hope you got to learn something new about producing or songwriting or mental health when it comes to making music, the fears that most musicians have when making music. So everything that's behind the scenes, behind making music, you will learn it here because I am basically talking to anyone that makes music all around the world. So I have a great privilege to learn all of that, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So follow this podcast if you enjoyed what you heard today, and go and share it with somebody that you think could enjoy this episode as well, benefit and learn from it. And as always, there's more information at alisekoa.com/podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye.